Morning everybody, how you all doing? Hope you're doing well. So after my live stream yesterday, go and watch it if you haven't already watched it. I was talking about the police and their legal obligation to refuse illegal orders. Go and look at that. I was also talking about a bit about stand up to racism as well, about them being on the MI5 terror watch list. Not a lot of people know that, but they are. Go and watch that live stream. So after I did that live stream, I was watching the protest live streams. I was watching several. I was watching AY Audits, was it Mystic Media from Epping. I watched their live streams late, the early ones they did from the was it Canary Wharf, Britannia Hotel, Canary Wharf, I think that's where it was. I was watching those. And let's just say that the police haven't really, like I put this, when I make these videos I'm being very restrained with my language, with what I say. But let's just say they didn't fulfill themselves with honour on either occasions, really. So, first off, we have to talk about what happened at Epping. The organiser was arrested on what I can only assume is a bogus charge of inciting racial hatred. One of the speakers at the Epping protest was arrested. She was merely arrested for putting a union flag over the banister of the local council offices. She walked up the steps, which is public property. She walked up the steps, didn't attempt to go in. All she did was just throw the union flag over the rail of the council offices, and this for some reason triggered the police into a brutal arrest of her. Later that day, different police force, different area, Canary Wharf, protesters marching through the shopping centre. Police, for some reason, I haven't looked into this yet, so I don't have the full context. There are videos out there, I'm going to watch those today. But for some reason, the police pepper sprayed citizen journalists. Among them was a 70-year-old grandmother that was pepper sprayed in the face, as was a 11-year-old boy who was also pepper sprayed in the face. Now, I don't know if this was deliberately or indirectly, because they're fucking useless with pepper spray and they don't know how to use it. So in the course of discharging it, they just spray everybody. Which to me points to their complete lack of training in these sort of things. And I think that best describes the police force in its current incarnation. Incompetent, politicised, and very, very poorly trained. That's my evaluation of the police force in this country. And I think it will be the evaluation of almost everybody's at this point in time. Now, regarding Epping, now the police have started to put in dispersal orders. They're dictating the time when protests can officially end. Now, to me, I think this needs to be challenged in the courts, because you shouldn't be able to decide when a protest ends, because the idea of a protest is that it carries on until you get what you want. As long as you're peaceful, you can carry on until you get what you want. And I think these things have been brought in ever since the 24-hour protests that we had at the RAF base, and I think there was one in Wales as well, where it was a round-the-clock protest, and eventually these places were forced to close down, simply because, and this is my opinion, because the protests were using up resources. They simply couldn't keep up the policing of these protests. So that's why I think they're starting to use these widespread dispersal orders now, questionably in my opinion, and I think this is something that needs to be taken to court and challenged legally, maybe in the High Court, Supreme Court, taken into the Supreme Court and challenged, because the police shouldn't be able to put a time limit on your human right to protest. They shouldn't be able to do that. As long as you're peaceful and you're not causing trouble, they could have a minimum skeleton crew to watch over the crowd. All you have to do is just basically stand there. All you have to do is stand there and protest. I have seen something else pop up as well, where the speaker got up onto the stage at the Epping protest yesterday and stated that people were going to refuse to pay their council tax. Now, I've always had an issue with this way of protesting. It can be effective, but you need everybody to do it. And I'm not just talking about the people of Epping, I'm talking about the entire country. And there simply isn't the numbers to do it. There isn't. This would be effective. I'm not saying it's not effective. It would be effective, but you need everybody in the country to do it. You need to organise first and then announce it. And make sure you have the numbers before you commit to it. Because withholding your council tax isn't a collective protest. It's a solo protest. And a solo protest can be very, very easily put down. Very easily. This isn't the 16 or 1700s where the government physically comes around and collects your taxes via a taxman. This is the modern age. So they don't even have to send anybody around to collect your council tax. They could just simply take it straight out of your bank account with a court order. They can do that. If you block that, they could take you home and that sort of thing. We're not in the age of the 1700s where you can physically stop paying your tax. Our tax is taken out of our bank automatically, and the government, whatever, if you agree or not, has the ability to take tax electronically now. We're in a different age. So I think that type of protest, although I understand the people's frustration in calling for it, it won't work. I said this before when the other guy came out saying that he was going to try and get a nationwide protest of not paying council tax. It won't work, not in this day and age. It won't. Like I said, the days have gone of when people physically come around and collect your taxes, where you could physically withhold your tax, you know. And I fully believe in the no representation, no taxation. That's what I believe in. If you're not represented, then you shouldn't pay tax. I fully believe that. But I also acknowledge that it's absolutely futile to try and withhold your council tax in this day and age. Because like I said, it's a solo protest. They can just single you out individually and target you. Whereas if you're doing a collective type protest, it's very hard to single people out. Especially if you're physically there and to protest. So maybe you want to rethink that one. Obviously, it's up to people's individual choice what they do. I'm just giving some opinions on what I think about that type of protest. I don't think it'll work personally. It won't. Just one thing I want to add before I go. Liam Tufts. So Liam Tufts, at the end of a protest, went up to shake the hand of a police officer who refused his hand. Now, there are two camps on this situation, and I kind of understand both of them. But let me just try and play devil's advocate on behalf of Liam Tufts. Because we live in this two-tier policing system, you've got to look at it from that perspective now. So if a protester from, say, Black Lives Matter took the knee to, a police officer took the knee to a Black Lives Matter protest, no issues. No issues at all with doing that, because within the policing infrastructure, that is classed as being perfectly okay, because that's the good ideology. Because let's not forget, these people are highly politicised. They are. There's no getting away from it. We all know these people are politicised. So, a patriot, Liam Tufts, you've probably seen him, the Liam Tufts podcast, goes up to shake the hands of a police officer. Perfectly innocent thing to do. Showing his respect for the police and that sort of thing. but the police officer refuses to shake his hand. Now we have to draw into question why a police officer would refuse to do that. There is nothing wrong with shaking the hand of a member of the public who is showing you their gratitude. Now the police officer said, "Oh, I'm impartial, I can't shake your hand." But I would say the police at the minute could do with some very, very good public relations exercises. They could do with some good public relations. And that gesture could have been a step forward for the police. It could. But we all know why he didn't shake Liam Tuff's hand. It was because the higher-ups would perceive that as endorsing the patriot movement. And the police are scared. They're scared. They are scared that if they don't show allegiance to one political ideology, they won't be promoted, or they will get the sack. The police fear for their own jobs at the minute. And if they show allegiance to the other political ideology, which is wokeness, that kind of stuff, then they will be promoted. We have to remember that the police aren't policing without fear or favour anymore. They're not impartial. They're not politically neutral. They are highly politicised. And it goes all the way up the ranks to the very top. We know this. So that's another reason why Liam Tuff was so angry. And Lawrence Fox was right. You know, we see the police at Pride events twerking with a political movement, because that's what they are. Pride is a political movement. Trans rights and all that kind of stuff. That's perceived to be an okay political movement to endorse. But when it comes to the patriot movement, not allowed. Not allowed. So I don't think the police officer was being ignorant. I think he was just fearful of the consequences if he did shake Liam Tuff's hand. So in that respect, I think Liam Tuff needs to acknowledge the position that police officer was in. In another situation, he might have shook his hand. If the police weren't politicised the way they are, I think he would have shook his hand. But we have to take into consideration that these officers are under scrutiny as well. They're under fear for their jobs because of the Starmer regime, because of the regime we now have in power. But I will say this, and I'll keep reiterating this. The police have a legal obligation to ignore any unlawful orders, any unlawful illegal orders. So if they're ordered to police two groups of people differently because the police are siding with one political ideology over another, that's unlawful, that's an illegal order. That's something that the police need to take into consideration. This is Vindicator, signing off.